Welcome, truth seekers and freedom lovers. This is Makia with the Freedom Articles. This is video 213 and the date is Saturday, April 26, 2025, and it's a very interesting topic for this video. It's about the Jewish cult Chabad Lubavitch. Some would say it's a very extreme form of the Messianic Judaistic cult. We're looking at whether they are actually behind the Russo-Ukraine war. And this article here starts off with an intro from Henry Macau. He's been exposing the Illuminati, Judaism, the cult, the satanic cult within Judaism for a very long time now. So he's got a few words at the start of this, and then it goes on to have an article by Edward Menez, NATO is Khazaria in drag. But just before we get to this, there is some background that's important for this if you don't already know it. Now, the former head of Chabad Lubavitch was a guy that they just called the Rebbe. And his full name is, he was actually honored at one point by Barack Obama. His name was Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And he was another one of these almost kind of cult-like heads because some people thought of him as the Messiah. And so whenever you get this cult of personality, you get people that somehow elevate the leaders of these organizations or religions into gods, and then they can do no wrong. So there's a history of the US honoring this guy, even though he was highly racist, as we're about to see. But what's interesting is that he met Netanyahu in this little clip, so I'm just going to play this right now.
בכל העניינים. מה שישראל לאחרונה נתפסו כמה עניינים. מה שרואה עוד, וגם משהו שעדיין משאיר ליבו. אז הייתה משהו עם מה ידיעתו.
עושים.
הכנראה שהיא מספיק, כאילו שהיום כבר כמה שעות בגלל ועדיין ליבו. אבל יש עוד כמה שעות, אבל יש להשתדל גם היום, בבשורות טובות. יש שמחה וטוב לבו. כדי שחסידים מקפידים שכל ימנו יהיו את שמחה. בשורות טובות, הצלחה רבה.
So, interesting little clip there, but this shows that Netanyahu has been beholden to these organizations with Judaism. That's why he got to the role where he is. But they have this obsession over the Messiah and wanting the Messiah to come and hastening the Messiah. And this goes back to the days of Zabbatai Zevi and Jacob Frank, who started Sabbatean Frankism. And those guys completely hijacked Judaism, and this Sabbatean Frankist cult still runs Judaism today. It's like the major force behind the whole New World Order, in fact. And this Lubavitch, Chabad Lubavitch sect is a very powerful force within Judaism, and they're totally into all these abuses and even satanic ritual. Here's an interesting article that reports on a case that happened in Melbourne, Australia. It was at a Chabad yeshiva, which is like a study center, where there was all sorts of child abuse going on. This man, Manny Wax, he stood up against it, took them to court, and eventually he won $800,000 in damages. And now he's an advocate for Jewish abuse victims. So you can read about this case. I'm sure this is just one of many around the world, because the Chabad have sects all over the world. But interestingly, in this article, it talks about how Rabbi Schneerson, when he was alive, he was definitely, saying certain things behind the scenes. And some of this is recorded in a book by Israel Shahak. And so basically, Israel Shahak was a Jew himself, but he kind of woke up to the whole Jewish fundamentalism or extremism that was happening within Judaism. And so he spoke out against it. And basically, he wrote a book called Jewish Fundamentalism in Israel, along with another author, Norton Mezvinsky. And it's a very interesting book. It does contain a lot of kind of obvious things in a way, but I see a lot of people, because in the West we're so hit with all this Islamophobia, we're so conditioned to believe, oh, Muslims are the bad guys, because Muslims have been framed as terrorists ever since 9/11, and well, actually going back before that, but famously with Osama bin Laden and everything in 9/11, and so there's this propaganda war to frame Muslims as the extremists, and sure, there are extreme Muslims, there's no doubt about it, who are willing to use violence, but the thing is that there's also very extreme sects of Judaism that are also willing to use violence to achieve their ends, and that's not reported or often seen by people in the West, because there's this propaganda to make it Judeo-Christian values and like Christians and Jews are one people and all this stuff. But actually, if you go back and look at what some of these leading Jews say, now again, this is not all of them, but this guy, for example, Schneerson, this is what he was recorded as saying, teaching by Israel Shahak in his book here. The difference between a Jewish and a non-Jewish person stems from a common expression. Let us differentiate. Thus, we do not have a case of profound change in which a person is merely on a superior level. Rather, we have a case of let us differentiate between totally different species. This is what needs to be said about the body. The body of a Jewish person is of a totally different quality from the body of the members of all nations of the world. The difference in the inequality between Jews and non-Jews is so great that the body should be considered as completely different species. An even greater difference exists in regard to the soul. Two contrary types of soul exist. A non-Jewish soul comes from 3 satanic spheres, while a Jewish soul stems from holiness. Unbelievable. So he's basically saying Jews aren't just superior, we're a completely different species. And, look at this, as has been explained, an embryo is called a human being because it has both body and soul. Thus, the difference between a Jewish and a non-Jewish embryo can be understood. The general difference between Jews and non-Jews. A Jew was not created as a means for some other purpose. He himself is the purpose, since the substance of all divine emanations was created only to serve in Jews. The entire creation of a non-Jew exists only for the sake of the Jews. So basically, Jews are so powerful and so important and so much better that they exist just to be the rulers, and everyone else should exist just to serve them, just to be their slave. So this is the New World Order in a nutshell. This kind of racism, this supremacy, and this mindset that there should be rulers and slaves. And if you're not part of the in-group, then you're a slave, and you should serve everyone else. So this is what he really was teaching and thinking, but somehow on the outside he passed off as like some kind of holy person, was getting honored by leaders like Jimmy Carter and Obama. But let's get to this article now. So this is the background to the man and the sect of Chabad Lubavitch. And basically, if you dig into this, Chabad controls Ukraine and Russia. And so it's quite possible that they are the force that's behind, one of the forces behind the war. Now, we all know, hopefully by now, if you've studied it, that we know about NATO's encroachment eastward. We know about the CIA's funding of Nazis and the undermining of the government in Russia, that the coup in 2014 and the Maidan, that's all true. But there's often circles within circles and hidden forces within outer forces. And so what's interesting here is this guy's talking about how there could be 3 Khazarias. So there's the first one, which was from the 7th to the 10th centuries approximately. That's when Khazaria first came to be an empire. They did a mass conversion to Judaism, and it was kind of like they went to it's almost like a supermarket and picked out a religion, and they picked out Judaism because it was the most convenient, politically advantageous at that time. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with more than that, really. Now, he says that there could be a second Khazaria that you could consider from 1917 to the end of the 1920s, right after the Russian revolutions when they installed the Bolsheviks. And a third Khazaria from 1991, the fall of the USSR onwards. So we have more in this article about Schneerson, and some people are claiming that this is what he said in a 1994 speech. Now, if you click on this link and you follow it through, the link is dead, but I did manage to find the original article on the Wayback Machine, archive.org, which is a great tool if you don't use that already. It's on a website, Justice for Poland. And it says, Chabad leader Messiah Menachem Mendel Schneerson on his plans for destroying Ukraine and Russia. Okay, very interesting what he is allegedly reported as saying here in 1994. Okay, this is what he says. Slavs, and among them Russians, are the most unbending people in the world. Slavs are unbending as a result of their psychological and intellectual abilities created by many generations of ancestors. It is impossible to alter these genes. Slav, Russian can never be destroyed, but never conquered. Sorry, can be destroyed, but never conquered. This is why this seed is subject to liquidation and at first a sharp reduction in their numbers. Okay, so he's talking depopulation now. First of all, we will divide the Slavic nations, of 300 million, half of them Russians, into small countries with weak and severed connections. For this, we will use our old method, divide and conquer. We will try to pit these countries against each other and suck them into civil wars for the sake of mutual destruction. The Ukrainians would think that they are fighting against the expansionist Russia and struggling for their independence. They will think that they have finally gained their freedom, while they have become fully subdued by us. The same will be thought by Russians, as though they defend their national interest to return their lands, illegally taken away from them, and so on. We will do all of this under the guise of different sovereignties, the struggle for national ideals. At the same time, we will not give either party any self-determination based on the national values and traditions. In this war of fools, the Slavic moronic herd will be weakening itself and strengthening us, the main controllers of the chaos, pretending to stand aside, not only without participating in the bloody events, but also without involvement. But this is all a pretense. Moreover, we will fully protect ourselves. In the consciousness of the Slavic fools, uninitiated, we will lay such stereotypes of thinking in which the word anti-Semite would become the most terrible word. The word Jew would be pronounced in a whisper. And they've actually done a very good job of achieving that. People are scared to even say the word Jew for being called anti-Semitic. It's incredible what they've done, this cult within Judaism. We will scare the cattle with several court cases and other methods, such as the revenge of Israeli Mossad super spies for killing Jews. We will frighten the cattle so bad that not a single hair will fall from the head of a Jew, while the Slavs will be shot in packs. Okay, I'm not going to read all of it, but this is what he's reported as saying, and it really goes along with his character. It would not surprise me at all if this is what he was teaching behind the scenes. And we know that Hava exerts quite a control over Putin. They're often meeting with him, and in all honesty, probably telling him what to do. So this article is worth reading through to the end, as is this one here. It's something to think about, because this cult has shown itself to be very influential behind the scenes. It has a huge center in New York. This is its center in Ukraine, in Russia. It is part of the Sabbatean Frankist cult that hijacked Judaism, that runs the world. So I'm going to leave it there. As always, don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Please leave your comments, and all links are placed in the show notes below every time. If you like this video and feel that I've earned it, please like, share, subscribe, and follow. My work is on Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, and thefreedomarticles.com.